Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by Minnesota Black Robe Regiment. Make sure you subscribe, checking out the bell icon down there, make that you're getting notifications when my content drops. If it sounds a little loud, it's because, as you can see, I am at Bucksnort Dam here in Fillmore County. Now, what on earth does this have to do with Minnesota Black Robe Regiment? And like, on the surface, ironically, no pun intended, on the surface it probably doesn't seem like there's much at all to do with Bucksnort Dam. But the reason that I'm out here is because of the thought process behind what made the United States the great and grand republic that it became. See, years ago, this valley, and it's a very narrow valley, but years ago, this valley was settled by pioneers, right? Who are the pioneers? And pioneers, if I have to explain this to you, there's probably not a lot of hope that we're going to get too far in our relationship, honestly. But we'll give it an attempt. The pioneers were great people because they had a rugged, individualistic mentality. They were volunteerists. They left the East Coast. They broke away from the conventions of what was at that time urban modern life, and they decided to set out west and build a life for themselves. And so things like Bucksnort Dam, and you can see the structures there. This, you see that old wheel up there on the top of that, right? So things like Bucksnort Dam were the work of generations from generations ago, of generations of people who said, we're going to eke out our existence through hard work. And they did it without any government interference. I want you to understand that. So as you look back over my shoulder and you see that wheel there was a mill here at one time. People came here, they looked at this area and they said, what can we make of our lives here? What can this do for us? How do we make the most out of this? And they settled in this area, and they put a little township in, and they grew. Now, is that town a booming metropolis now? I was telling somebody yesterday, every one of these tiny little towns and all of these tiny little spots in Fillmore County, here in the Bluffs, they're tiny, yeah, but they were the center of activity, of entrepreneurship, of personal responsibility. People survived because they worked hard. And as I've already said, it was without government interference. These people didn't need government to support them. These people didn't need government to come in and hand them money and say, oh, you want to build a business, so we're going to give you a tax increment finance district. Government didn't come in and incentivize what ended up being dependency. These people just came out here and they invested. Did investment look different then? Sure. Investment didn't look the same as it looks now. But at the same time, sweat equity was far more important to them than any amount of money that they could have invested ever would have been. See, beautiful little wide spots in the road like this little park that's been set aside to commemorate and memorialize what was once here, aren't just quaint little picnic places for us to come and go trout fishing or fly fishing. They're not places for us to just have a nice little fire and drink some beer and get drunk. These places are reminders to us of the great American spirit that said, we're going to go out, we're going to eke out an existence in the wilderness. And make no mistake, the time that this area was settled, it was wilderness. It was unproven country. We don't have anybody in our country today, for the most part, that could do this. Because we've become, one, completely dependent on permission from our government to do anything. Two, we've always are looking for excuse me, I got a lot of gnats flying around. We're always looking for some sort of incentive from the government. We want the government to invest in us. And we have had people like Joe Biden say, oh, the government's investing. The government's going to invest. The government's going to do this. Government did that. The federal government did this. These people did this. There was no federal government to help them. Not that the federal government didn't exist, but the federal government wasn't interested in handing them money to come out here and do that. They did it on their own. It wouldn't happen today. Sure, there are small entrepreneurial types out there who are doing things on their own. They're not taking any government money. Just had a phone call with a great patriot and a veteran. We're going to be sitting down and doing an interview about his business here sometime this week. And the things that he is doing. But for the most part, we couldn't do this today. We've become weak. We've become dependent. So one more time, we're going to take a look at this dam. And I want you guys to think about that. Where are we today as a nation? And if you came by a stream like this today, with most of the people who are in their early 20s to their 30s, would they look at that and go, man, what could we do with this? They wouldn't. For the most part, what they would end up doing is nothing. And the generations, the people in their 40s and 50s and 60s, are much to blame for that lack of entrepreneurial and mentality and self-reliance. Because we've allowed the government to become our nanny, to take care of us from cradle to grave. So as always, don't worry about your safety. Stop thinking about what the government can do for you, what the government can give you to make you successful. Be successful on your own. Make your own way. Until next time, Sic Semper Tyrannis.